Hi, my name is Adiri Zansky-Nir. Welcome to the Healthcare Stage, the go-to podcast for innovators dedicated to enhancing health and wellness globally. In each episode, we dive into insightful conversations with those at the forefront of healthcare innovation.
In this episode, we focus on VTM Technologies, an Israeli medical device startup that developed a laser-based virtual tape measure for precise measurement of polyp size during colonoscopy procedures. Their innovative FDA-approved device addresses the critical need for accurate polyp sizing in colorectal cancer screening and surveillance. In current practice, polyp size is subjectively assessed during colonoscopy by gastroenterologists, which may lead to overestimation or underestimation of polyp size. Both overestimation and underestimation influence follow-up colonoscopy surveillance period, such that follow-up colonoscopy may be scheduled either too early or too late, affecting patient outcome and healthcare costs. VTM system aims to eliminate these issues by offering an objective measurement of polyp size during colonoscopy procedure. The company is seeking capital to support their ongoing multi-center study, US market penetration, and for further development of their product. If you are an investor interested in new opportunities in the medical device space, this podcast is for you. It is my absolute pleasure to host Avishay Sidlesky, the CEO of VTM. Avishay holds a BSc in Mechanical Engineering and a master's degree in Computer Science from the Technion. Avishay brings a multidisciplinary background, performing a variety of technological roles in numerous healthcare companies before he started VTM. Hi, Avishay.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Tell us something about yourself.
Well, other than my day job, I'm an avid long-distance runner for over 30 years now, and I mainly enjoy running off-road in the beautiful settings of Mount Carmel, near where I live.
Indeed, a beautiful place, and no doubt that running regularly requires a high level of discipline and commitment.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Traits that are equally important in the CEO role. Before we dive into your solution, please explain our audience the current practice and guidelines concerning polyp size assessment, polyp removal, and the frequency of follow-up colonoscopy derived from the initial findings obtained during colonoscopy.
Sure. So first, to put things in perspective, in 2023, there were an estimated 50 million colonoscopies performed in US and Europe combined, roughly even split. Now, according to the guidelines, routine screening colonoscopy is scheduled once every 10 years and from the age of 45 or 40. Now, all polyps detected should be resected, meaning taken out, regardless of the size, and sent to pathology.
And what can you tell us about the follow-up colonoscopy? What parameters should be taken into consideration?
Yeah, for sure. So first and foremost, there is the malignancy number and size of a finding. Now, physicians are required to document the size of all detected polyps in situ before they take him out and place that in the patient's report. In current practice, physicians are using their acquired expertise in assessing the size, which is highly subjective due to the wide angle lens of the endoscope camera. Now, it also introduced large distortions and its difficulty to grasp the depths of field. So this is why it's very difficult to adhere to the guidelines when it speaks about the size of the specimen. Now, in some cases, in order to improve that, physicians are using biopsy forceps or snare, which is a metal wire loop as scale before removing the polyp to better assess the size. It's basically done in research when they require true or better size assessment. Now, since it is challenging to properly orient and place the tool next to the polyp to obtain clear reference, this typically doesn't add much to the accuracy. And finally, also the size is reported at the pathology lab, the size of the specimen is reported back there. Just bear in mind that polyps are sometimes taken out in pieces, taken with or without proper margins, sucked through the working channel, and finally placed in formalin. So by the time they reach the pathology lab, they don't resemble their original shape. And of course, as I mentioned, the time for follow-up colonoscopy, which is called surveillance interval, is determined jointly by the size of the polyp, the number, and their pathology, the malignancy.
So nowadays, all polyps detected should be excised. Hence, the appreciation of polyp size is important in order to determine if the patient should come for a follow-up colonoscopy after 3, 5, 10 years.
Exactly. Now, it's true that the guidelines state that all polyps should be taken out. There are some regions of the colon where polyps are known not to develop to be malignant. So if there are many polyps, physicians can sometimes waver on that. And the guidelines are different in different geographic regions, like the United States and Europe, differ slightly. However, the cutoff size to determine the time interval to the next colonoscopy is 10 millimeter. As one example, in the US guidelines, if the only findings were hyperplastic, meaning benign or non-malignant malignant polyps are less than 10 millimeter in size, the patient returns to the next colonoscopy after 10 years as normal. However, if there were at least one hyperplastic polyp more than 10 millimeter in size, the patient comes back within 5 years or less, depending on additional findings. So size is highly important to the guidelines.
So in 2016, you established VTM based on research conducted in order to understand the commercial opportunity and the clinical unmet need. Say a word about the solution you bring into the market. What is the main technological characteristic of this product?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we realized that we can make a difference by introducing measurement capabilities into endoscopy, which was practically attempted by all the major endoscopy companies in the past. And as I just mentioned, colonoscopy presents a huge market. And this is true also for additional GI, different procedures in GI and other medical domains. And with respect to our technology, our concept is called a virtual tape measure. And this is basically the acronym of our company. VTM stands for virtual tape measure, and it relies on projecting a laser plane across the object to be measured, much like a barcode reader, and using a triangulation principle to make the measurements. In a nutshell, as long as the laser plane is at an offset from the camera focal point, we can retrieve the 3D coordinates of each point lying on the intersection curve of the plane with the scene, perform simple size measurement, or even advanced geodesic profile of the entire curve. By the way, the same principle is applied elsewhere in 3D scanners, quality control of manufacturing, and more. But still, since it was never applied to endoscopy, we were able to obtain a broad patent on this concept and developed it further to cover the use of a freely manipulated probe.
Nice. So your device is inserted through a regular endoscope, right?
Yes, it's correct. We wanted to develop a product that would not change anything in the way colonoscopy is performed.
Mm-hmm.
And our AccuMeasure system has two elements, a medical grade PC and a probe. We use the endoscope working channel, the standard channel, through which physicians manipulate different tools to insert our probe as well, and to shine the laser line across the finding, while the measurements are done on a dedicated PC screen located on the endoscopy cart by simply designating the endpoints along the VTM curve. Now, I should point out that the images with the overlaid measurement can also be integrated into the patient reports for future reference. So this is also beneficial.
Let's see a short movie describing how it works in real time.
VTM Technologies, measurement made easy. The VTM AccuMeasure system consists of a measurement workstation, a laser source, and a probe which generates a laser line. The physician or physician assistant conducts measurements using the VTM AccuMeasure application. At the beginning of the procedure, the physician acquires an initiation image. The probe is now ready to be used. During the colonoscopy, the physician manipulates the AccuMeasure probe to measure the polyp. In this case, a clinically significant polyp, which the physician initially assesses at 12 millimeters. The physician simply places the virtual tape measure laser line across the polyp. Measuring the diameter of the polyp is as easy as designating two endpoints. The physician now knows that this polyp measures 9.3 millimeters, below the 10 millimeter cutoff. The AccuMeasure system can also generate a trace, that is, the polyp's depth profile. Here, the physician is using the VTM AccuMeasure system to measure a diminutive polyp. Upon freezing the image and designating the endpoints, the VTM AccuMeasure system shows the size of the polyp, 5.4 millimeters in this case. Measuring the same polyp from a different angle. VTM Technologies, measurement made easy.
Let's talk about the clinical and economical value proposition created by an objective and accurate measurement of polyp size.
Sure. We initially analyzed the clinical and financial impact of overestimation, underestimation, and accurate measurements according to the current guidelines. Now, overestimation implies too early follow-up. For the patient, it generates elevated discomfort due to too frequent colonoscopies. As you know, preparation for colonoscopy is not that pleasant, and so is the hassle to visit the clinic. I would personally prefer not to do that unless mandatory. Too frequent colonoscopies also increase the chances of complication. Although colonoscopy is considered extremely safe, one can never rule out complication, and the same applies here. Do not overdo it. Regarding out-of-pocket expenses, on top of the time spent on the preparation and in the clinic, some insurance programs cover only screen colonoscopies at 10 years interval. And with respect to the clinic, of course, they currently provide suboptimal care because they can't precisely adhere to the guidelines. Also, too frequent colonoscopies increase the load at the clinic. And finally, with respect to the payers, obviously, they currently reimburse for unneeded procedures. Moving on to underestimation, and this actually implies too late follow-up. Now, in this case, there could have been a polyp that was hidden in the previous colonoscopy that was left undetected, which turned cancerous by the time the next colonoscopy is performed. Now, this immediately reflects on the survival rate of the patient. With respect to the clinic, of course, underestimation also implies suboptimal care by the clinic, and the added load in this case is not on the endoscopy clinic, but rather on the oncology unit. The payer now also has to handle a case of too developed colorectal cancer that would otherwise have been avoided. I don't have anything more to elaborate on that because that's really a disastrous situation.
Yeah.
Now, finally, with respect to accurate and precise measurements, the advances are obvious. Since physicians can finally adhere to the guidelines, they provide the patient with the best possible care. The payers avoid cases of too frequent procedures or too late stage detection of colorectal cancer. And finally, on top of that, we believe that endoscopy clinics earned prestige in using state-of-the-art technology.
In previous conversation we had, you told me that many gastroenterologists would prefer not to send small polyps under 5 millimeter to pathology and would like to avoid the resection of these polyps altogether. How can your system help them on that regard?
Sure. Firstly, it is probably reassuring for some of our audience to realize that most of the polyps detected in screening colonoscopies are small and benign. If these polyps are smaller than 5 millimeters, they are called diminutive polyps. Many peer-reviewed works demonstrated that diminutive polyps do not put the patient at risk. There are quite a few key opinion leaders, physicians who advocate a resect and discard approach, in which case they will resect the polyp, but will not send it to pathology, or even diagnose them and leave them behind. The barriers to both these approaches is the lack of accurate sizing. These physicians told us our system might help in shaping future guidelines as well, and in saving further time and money to the healthcare system.
So in principle, this solution can potentially change future guidelines.
True, indeed.
Let's talk about your competitors. Most have developed AI-based solutions and some are non-AI products. Let's start with the non-AI products.
Okay, so there are two non-AI solutions. One is the Napoleon measuring device by Microtech. It's essentially a mechanical ruler. It's a single-use device with grating at its tip, which physicians place next to the findings, similar to the tools that they currently use to assess the size, the biopsy forceps and the snare. To the best of our knowledge, since physicians are not reimbursed for using it, and it's a disposable device, its adoption is limited. Another solution is a scale-eye system by Fujifilm, which is one of the large endoscope vendors. It has a single laser beam integrated into an endoscope, and it overlays a coarse ruler or circle as scale on screen once it detects the laser dot in the image. As the name implies, the system provides an estimate for size. In fact, in a Canadian study from 2022, it was reported that the system was within 25% of the true size immediately following resection in 86% of the time. This is an improvement over the visual assessment, although it is arguably not accurate enough when relating to the 10 millimeter cutoff mentioned earlier.
So when you compare the level of accuracy they have to what you guys have, so you're worried about your accuracy?
Actually, it's a totally different ballgame. It's uncomparable. We strive to make accurate measurements, and specifically with the 10 millimeter cutoff size, we are plus minus half a millimeter accurate.
Impressive. Say a word about the AI-based solutions out there, the products that are already in the market and the one which are under development.
Sure. So there are basically two mature solutions available. Automatic polyp detection, that is actually marking rectangle where the system believes there is a polyp, and automatic polyp diagnosis, which is determining the malignancy of the polyp based only on its appearance. It is known that AI is limited in its ability to provide answers which are accurate to a given degree 100% of the time. It is therefore it is excellent as a decision support tool where physicians can challenge and override its output. In the case of polyp detection, false negative, that is missing a polyp, or false positive, that is actually marking a rectangle where there is no polyp, are both acceptable to some extent, since you have the physician in the loop. Other than the major endoscope vendors, Olympus, Pentax Medical, and Fujifilm, there are quite a few others, Medtronic, NEC, and several small companies, such as the Israeli company Magentic Eye, which have developed tools for automatic polyp detections. Some companies are working on providing sizing with AI. However, in this case, physicians would not have a way to challenge the output since their assessment is essentially subjective. This is the underlying problem that we wish to solve. So we believe that providing sizing with AI would be challenging. lastly, it is easy to see the synergy between our solution for sizing, polyp detection, and diagnosis. And it poses an exciting opportunities for collaboration.
Yeah, the future is exciting, and there is no doubt that moving forward, we would see a combined solution because it makes sense to
totally
combine all
agree.
these capabilities together. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the status of the clinical development.
Yeah, so our AccuMeasure system is already approved for sales in the US, and being the first of its kind, we take great pride that it got a de novo designation by the FDA. It's actually the first endoscopic light projecting measurement device out there. And the submission actually involved a single site first-in-human study for safety and usability, while the actual challenging part was proving the accuracy of the system in vitro to be high enough to have clinical relevancy. Our accuracy, since the submission, our accuracy actually improved further to be within plus minus 5% of the true size. So as I mentioned before, if we take the 10 millimeter cutoff, our system is accurate to 0.5 millimeter within that size. We are also currently conducting a multi-center study in US, Europe, and Israel. Its primary endpoint is obtaining agreement, or actually disagreement, between AccuMeasure and biopsy forceps-assisted measurement for different size categories like small, medium, and large. The study is expected to conclude this year. And finally, in parallel, we are launching a commercial pilot at selected sites in the States.
Very exciting. What is your business strategy?
As mentioned, our system actually includes capital equipment, a medical-grade PC, and a reusable probe which can be used for a large number of procedures before replacement. The probes are reprocessed, so they undergo cleaning and high-level disinfection at the same time as the endoscope at no additional cost. Our system basically upgrades the existing endoscopy system with measurement capabilities for about 10% the price of a fully equipped endoscopy cart. And we deploy it in each endoscopy room. And the reusable probes have to be replaced periodically, and eventually it adds only a small cost, about a few dollars per procedure, which is key to adoption. And lastly, as is the case with other medical devices, we also employ a pay-per-use model.
So you are using this strategy, meaning reusable instead of disposable, at this early market penetration, because you assumed it would take several years to generate a reimbursement code that would be based on the budget impact of the product?
Yes. So early on, we were advised by key figures that the only option for adoption, not having an existing reimbursement code to rely on, is providing the measurement capability at a cost per procedure of a few dollars, which is considered negligible. The path to obtaining reimbursement code typically spans 3 to 4 years and requires them demonstrating clinical efficacy and economic justification. During this time span, we would perfect the single-use disposable variant of the probe, which would be priced to align with the economic analysis, most probably at around $100 or higher.
So you intend to generate health economics data once you start selling the device with the reusable in order to show the budget impact of the solution, so you can get a reimbursement code.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about the market size for the disposables, assuming reimbursement code is obtained.
Yeah, so I would conduct analysis on the US market. As I mentioned before, it conducts about half the number of procedures, so about 25 million procedures performed last year, having a compound annual growth rate of over 6%. By 2028, which is 4 years from now, this number would increase to approximately 33.5 million procedures. And assuming 1 in every 4 patients has a finding, and the highly modest adoption rate of 5%, we can generate yearly recurrent revenues of approximately $42 million only from the disposable. And without getting into specifics, our current revenue model, relying on reusable devices, is reasonably priced for our customers, will enable decent revenues as well.
I would say super affordable, not reasonably priced.
Exactly.
Okay. There are additional benefits to your system, which has to do with large-scale data collection. And assuming there are enough systems in the market, what is the possible contribution of this application?
Yeah, well, your observation is correct. Once we deploy enough systems and as we scale up, we can accumulate data of sized GI findings, and we can also monetize on that as well. Imagine having a unique database of sized endoscopic finding. This valuable database adds completely new layer of information, which opens the door to more precise medical research, improved AI models, drug development, and more applications.
This is exciting. What do you consider to be the potential strategic collaborators?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we believe that our virtual tape measure approach has a true value proposition to the major endoscope vendors. And incidentally, our core technology is already miniaturized to the extent it can easily be integrated into existing endoscopes. So it is not unlikely we would see a collaboration with one of these vendors going forward. And independently, we are also exploring collaboration with companies and institutions developing AI-based solutions. And also, you have contract research organizations and pharma companies which are involved in large-scale studies requiring measurement during endoscopic procedures. They also can benefit from the measurement we provide.
You are currently in the process of raising money. How much money do you wish to raise moving forward, and what do you plan to do with this money?
So we have an active round of $6 to $8 million in progress, which we intend to be the last, since it would enable us to scale up our activity all the way to profitability. It would also assist us in promoting more R&D, such as the disposable variant of the probe that I mentioned, and AI enhancement. And also, it would allow us to enter additional regions and verticals.
Okay, so let me try and summarize your achievements to date. You developed a device which provides accurate and objective measure of polyps during colonoscopy, and you have a strong IP protection combining issued and pending patents and trade secrets. It's compatible with all major vendors, which could eventually become your strategic partners. It is FDA approved, and you are currently conducting global multi-center trial. On top of this, you're entering a commercial pilot with paying customers.
Indeed.
Okay. What are your main risks moving forward, and how will you mitigate them?
Yeah, so you stated correctly that our system is already ready for sales and FDA approved. Our biggest challenge by far is market adoption. It requires proper funding and a lot of legwork, and there is no easy way around it. And as the first step, as you indicated, we trust the multi-center study and the commercial pilot would increase our visibility and generate key insights going forward.
We are nearing the end of our meeting, and I would like to ask, how do you want to summarize your mission?
Well, early on in this journey, I've set my goal on making true impact in the medical domain and augmenting endoscopy with a much needed measurement capability to be on a par with ultrasound, CT, and MRI simply felt worth the effort. Now, fast forward to today, I realized that my gut feeling was correct, and I'm truly eager to see how the future unfolds.
Avishay, thank you so much for sharing the mission and status of VTM with me. I hope this podcast will help you guys in your important journey. And I hope that your system would help to avoid diagnosis of colon cancer at more advanced stages. For audience interested in learning more about the clinical data generated by VTM, I recommend visiting their website. This podcast is available on my LinkedIn page called The Healthcare Stage and also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you are working at companies developing novel solutions aimed at improving the lives of others, or you are researchers in hospital or academia conducting groundbreaking research with potential clinical application, do get in touch with me at adi@thehealthcarestage.com. Avishay, I hope the company will achieve all its milestones. Thank you so much for coming over. It was an honor and a pleasure.
It was a great honor being on your stage today, and thank you for hosting me.
Thanks.